All right, I'd like to call this regular board meeting to order. If you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor March,
Here.
Trustee Hudson,
Here.
Trustee Maravka. Here. Trustee Richards, Trustee Sandberg,
Here.
Trustee Sluse, Trustee Sturba,
Here.
All right, public comments. There are none. Move on to the consent agenda. We've got the minutes of the April 14, 2025 regular village board meeting. There was one small correction in there. On the roll call, it said I was present, but I was not. We've got a payroll and accounts payable. The payroll for the pay period ending April 12th, 2025 of $65,207.56. Accounts payable for the pay period ending April 25th, 2025 out of the general fund, $69,047.89. And then for the period ending March 31st, out of the general fund, $2,392.03. The BDD, $726.75. TIF 1 fund, $1,060.25. TIF 2 fund, $4,761.25, for a total of $8,940.28. We also have approval of the liquor, tobacco, amplifier, video gaming renewals for Burkott's, Circle K, Fire Pit, Hanson's Dugout, Susie's Saloon, and Will County Fair Association. Any trustees want to have any of those removed from the consent agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion. Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, seconded by trustee Sturba.
Trustee Hudson,
Yes.
Trustee Maravka.
Yes.
Trustee Sandberg,
Yes.
Trustee Sturba,
Yes.
All right, on to staff and committee reports. You had something from Troy, right?
Yeah, so Troy couldn't make it tonight, but he just wanted to let everyone know that and I was gonna report on this too, that deconstruction did do the sidewalks recently, and we're expecting them hopefully this week to do some of the backfill along the sidewalks, and then they have some additional ditch work that they were still needing to do. And then we're working towards the final punch list on downtown too, so we'll hear more about that coming meeting, so.
Are they the ones that are working on, what's that road? Conrad Street, or who, is that Aqua?
That's Aqua and Nycor we're doing some more. I think Aqua was the last one up
Okay.
there, so, yeah.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Right. I know Bob was not in today. Did he have a report?
There was a report in the
There was a
packet.
report in the packet, yeah. Chief, anything outside of your packet?
Just, we're up to 42 non-highway vehicle inspections that the officers done. Last year we had 70 permits, and myself and Loretta will be at the farmers markets, and we'll be doing inspections out there. So, if you don't have it, make sure you get it by June 1st.
And then May 16th is your cop on the roof?
Yeah, Friday from 5 until 11 is cop on top, and then afterwards we're having thank your public worker, and it's Police Memorial Week, so we'll have a little cookout here, and any of the public, any of the trustees, all employees will be, all the public works and the police officers are, when they're done with the cop on top, they're going to come over and have hamburgers and hot dogs. So we have a little cookout going out. This will be the 3rd year that we've done this.
Very good, so put that on your calendar. The treasurer's report was sent to you separately. And did you have anything else you want to report on?
I had sent something out to the trustees last week, but I decided to do a little more today, so I put it on your desk, but I'm just gonna run through a few highlights. The travel center, they are working aggressively to complete the hotel and hope to be open in May, but stay tuned for further updates. As I mentioned, the sidewalks were poured. We continue to have a lot of interest in the 57 and Peatone Wilmington Road, that property there in the northeast quadrant, so nothing definitive, but they're looking at that. There are some issues with access, which I've talked about before. Also, the restaurant in the travel center, the third restaurant, is still on track, just not yet, because they're using that space right now for storage. And there may be some other businesses potentially coming in there too in the future. I just wanted to touch on this real quick. Code enforcement, obviously, as we've said many times, compliance is our goal here, is what I've been told. I mean, we're not looking to rack up a lot of fines. But unfortunately, sometimes unresponsiveness to those prods force us to take it to another level. We did have some complaints that were submitted, BNF investigated, and we were able to resolve a few of those. Some of those are still ongoing. One ongoing issue downtown, 105 South 2nd Street has been kind of an ongoing issue. And working with the chief and the fire district, we determined, one, that their doors had been left open there, their doors that were unlocked, and there was a wood door that was able to be pushed in, so chief was able to secure some of those. The owner was contacted and said, you really need to secure your building, or else we're gonna have to take additional actions. There was no action taken last week, so the building was ticketed, and on Friday, late Friday afternoon, we had a service board up the window, which was progressively sliding out of the well that it was in and becoming a very serious safety issue. So now all the doors are secure, the window's secure, and we will be passing that cost along to the owner. But hate to do that, but it's, at some point it becomes more than just a minor safety issue, so I'll keep you posted on that. And then one other issue, which is, I'm gonna mention it, East South Street, there's an issue with one of the homeowners there. I've talked to a number of you about that. This is an issue with a sanitary problem. The homeowner had a backup there. Village had engaged. We talked to Aqua. Aqua had cambered their systems. They don't see a problem on their line. The homeowner has cambered their system, and there is a separation on the pipe. I wish we had a definitive reason for it, but I mean, I don't know that we can 100% say that, but I think the village and Aqua will need to be engaged regardless, because it is right at the street, and there's a hole there that's impacting the road. And unfortunately, it's a bad situation that unfortunately a lot of homeowners face sometimes, and my understanding always has been from the line to your home is homeowner's responsibility, but that's difficult when it's a bigger issue, and this is pretty deep. But we debated about putting it on the agenda and having a formal discussion, but at this point, that's just kind of an update, and it's still playing out. So that's it. I'll comment on the other board item or agenda items as we go through. So.
Okay. Good. I don't see anybody from Aqua here. Just so everybody knows, Angie, who was our Aqua rep, is, I believe she resigned from Aqua. I'm not sure what her last day is, so I'm sure we'll be getting assigned a new rep here soon. That does it for committee reports. So my comments, just since this is my last board meeting, I just wanted to thank the residents for allowing me to serve as mayor for the last 5 years. I've enjoyed it. I think we got a lot done. I especially enjoyed working with the board. Like I said, I think we did get a lot accomplished along with the staff. I mean, I think we've got a great team in place. Obviously, there's more progress that needs to be done, and I look forward to Mayor Chris and the new board getting a lot done, and just looking forward to continued progress for Peatone. So, all right, no old business, new business. We've got a presentation from TRIA on the facility assessment and space needs analysis. With that, I don't know if you want to say something first.
Just, I mean, maybe a quick introduction for the people in the audience. This was authorized in June of 2024. The goal is to review the village hall, the police station, public works, and we are going to hear in a second about it documented the current state and necessary repairs and any code issues, and with an eye to the future of what we need to do and what a more perfect building would look like if we, and an example of that is like, we don't have a true conference room, so if the mayor and I or staff want to meet, we usually meet in the boardroom, and then people are passing through, and sometimes there's conflicts of that, so. But no formal action is required tonight. This is really just to hear the report from TRIA and use this as a guide, hopefully going forward, so, Ron?
Thanks, Nick. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Ron McGrath from TRIA Architecture. So I'm one of the owners of TRIA Architecture, but I was also the one who led the effort on putting together the facility assessment and the space needs report. So we really did, it's really sort of, there are two separate efforts in the facility assessment and the space needs that we've gone through. So for the facility assessment portion, I usually refer to it as the what's broken. So it's looking at the condition of the facility as it is, what things are working, what things aren't. Where the space needs is looking at how the building is used, how the spaces are used, what spaces are adequate, which ones are inadequate, which ones are missing. So it's two separate trains of thought. For the facility assessment, I walked through and did the architectural assessment of the building. We also had an MEP, a mechanical electrical plumbing engineer, come through and do a walkthrough of the building, and so the report encompasses both architectural and MEP items. For the facility, or for the space needs portion, I've met numerous times with Nick and the police chief and Public Works, and a few times with the mayor as well, to go through how the building is used, how the spaces are used, what the long-term plan is for staffing for both Village Hall and for police, as well as what issues or deficiencies have come up in the use of the building from both sides, Village Hall and police. And I did meet with Public Works. Public Works being a fairly new build-out, the majority of the items that we tagged for Public Works, I think there's only 3 if I remember right, have more to do with moving forward than anything that's really wrong with the buildings. Simple fashion, the 3 Public Works ones are easy. Just the garage is full at this point, so if you add any more vehicles, they're either going to go outside or you're going to stay in the garage. And there's 1 bathroom and no locker room. Ideally, you have a male and a female locker room, a male and a female bathroom. But since you have no female Public Works staff right now, it's not an issue. But if you do get a female Public Works staff member, you need to make accommodations. But that's about it for Public Works, not too drastic. So. I want to touch that fact first because that's the easy part. Village Hall and police, however, it's another story. So as far as, we'll start with the facility assessment. So the big items, and I'm not going to walk you through every item on the list. I don't think anybody wants to be that bored. But the big items are things like accessibility. If you've walked through both halves of the building, you know that there are many different levels. And Village Hall is elevated. The boardroom, the public space here is at grade level. And hence the stairs that are behind you, which, by the way, don't need colored by themselves. And then the back part of police and most of the garage are at this level, but there is some spaces in the farther back portion that are up several steps. And then police goes actually, as you go this way, it goes up 1 step into the detective's office. Not detectives, it's 1 step up into the sergeant's office. And then another step up into the front of house, and where the reception is, where the cells are, where booking is, hence these steps that go right up into the cells, the holding cells. I know it's happened at least once because we've talked about it, but there is no way after hours, because the sergeant's office is locked, that if officers are in the squad room in the back or in the garage in the back, and for some reason they need to get to the holding cells, they have to come through here, through the boardroom. So if there's a public meeting or a public event going on in this room, you have officers streaming through here in order to get up to the holding cells, which I have to say is less than ideal, of course. So from a layout standpoint, there's a lot of issues, as well as the different levels, because that gets us some accessibility issues. Somebody can get into this space, but if you had a staff member who was disabled and that worked in Village Hall, they would not, if it was winter, they don't have equal accommodations being able to get into the boardroom because they can't come straight into inside. They have to go outside the side and come inside. The spirit of the ADA is that it's equal accommodation, so that it's not somebody who's disabled doesn't have to go outside in the cold and bundle up in order to go from one room to the next. Police is much more difficult because they don't have a ramp to get from the sidewalk into police, so there's a step up to get in the front door. So even the public space, and then that vestibule is very small, it doesn't meet accessibility code by itself. And then as you go through the police station, you quickly run out of space that somebody who's disabled can access, which that's all behind the scenes and staff spaces, but you can have, especially temporarily disabled officers who may be on desk duty who would have trouble navigating through the different levels of the police station. So there are, that's one of the bigger concerns. Another concern is just the infrastructure of the MEP systems. So, I mean, you have a rooftop unit that I know only gets turned on when it's absolutely necessary because it rattles the building. So obviously that's an issue because that unit is beyond its usable life and it shouldn't have to be that way. There are a series of smaller cooling units throughout the building that are not the ideal way to heat and cool a building of this use and size. The electrical system, the electrical panels are old and concerning. Water service, there are, I believe we counted 4 separate water services that come into the building, and none of them have backflow prevention or RPZs on them, so there's, you know, that's a health and code issue that we want to be concerned about. In addition to just the MEP stuff, then we get into just the exterior elevation of the building. So there's, if anybody's come up the ramp along the side up here, you'll see that there's a lot of spalling brick at the bottom part of the ramp, or there's a lot of brick that's sort of coming apart. There's a lot of tuck pointing that needs to be done along the back side, along the police over here. There's walls that are just exposed CMU to the exterior that is concerning. There's a lot of rotted wood fascias. There's a couple wood frame windows that the wood is rotting away at. The roof, I don't know if anybody was here when this roof was put on, but it does look and feel like it was a EPDM roof that was just laid on top of an old, my guess would be a coal tar pitch roof by the way it feels, but some sort of old asphalt roof because you can hear it crunching underneath the rubber, which is, it's less than ideal to do a roof over in that sense because the EPDM never really adheres well to the asphalt roofs. Plus that asphalt roof is continuing to deteriorate underneath it. And we don't know what condition the insulation is. If the roof is crunching that much, it was in bad shape when the EPDM got put over it, so you don't know how much water got into the insulation, what condition that's in. Not to mention there's some flashing details you can see pictures of in the report that are not properly installed. So there's issues with the roof itself, not to mention some of the higher area. There's some masonry issues with the masonry walls above the roof, some gutter issues. And then the stairway to the second floor above the police station, the siding is in bad shape, and there's some metal soffit panels that are half hanging off, and some issues with that construction. So there are a lot of maintenance and repair issues with the building. Am I forgetting any of the major ones? I think I've covered the major stuff. So the infrastructure of the building, there's a lot. So you'll notice in the facility assessment that there are some lines that are sort of a bluish gray. Those are ones that we've outlined as being sort of part of a 5-year plan. So the things that are more critical to get done, or probably better to get done sooner rather than later, if we're going to start looking at the 5-year plan as sort of a roadmap. So things to do within the next 5 years. So we've kind of put those together separately from the other items, and we'll talk about the sort of budget spreadsheet at the end. So we can start covering as a roadmap towards covering and fixing some of these things. So that's sort of the big picture of the items within the facility assessment. Before I move to space needs, does anybody have any questions on the facility assessment side of it? No. Okay. All right. So, I should mention 2 other things that nobody's probably ever seen of this group unless you've gone through every nook and cranny of this building. The basement under Village Hall, there is some signs of water infiltration within the foundation wall, and there's part of it is a cinder block foundation wall that does have some cracking in it that we would recommend a structural engineer come and take a look at to make sure everything's kosher for the time being. And then with the second floor above police, It's an old apartment that's been sort of decommissioned is a way to put it. But there is a room that's being used as record storage, and it's basically being temperature controlled by a little portable air conditioning unit that sits on the floor, which is obviously not the ideal way to control humidity and temperature within a record storage space. It's also used for storage for spare uniforms and some other stuff, but it's not the prettiest space to be in by any means. All right, so then we get into space needs. So within space needs, like I said, we talked about, first thing we did as TRIA, is we went through, we created an accurate plan of the existing building, so we could take a square footage take off of every room in the building. So your current square footage column that's in there, it's every room in the building and how big that room is in reality. So we field measured the building and made sure we had an accurate plan. So then we sat down with the chief and with Nick and with the mayor, and we went through the spaces and talked about how they use each space, whether or not they were adequate, whether or not the spaces were being used efficiently, whether or not they were able to work efficiently within the spaces they had. So some spaces got bigger, some stayed the same, some went away, but there are also then significant spaces that are missing, especially, I don't want to say especially from police, but more from police than Village Hall. The biggest thing that Village Hall is missing is a meeting space. Like Nick referred to, there's no space for a private meeting within Village Hall. Even this space, which because it is the hallway between police and Village Hall, and even from front of house to back of house for police and after hours, is not a private meeting, and not a private space for a meeting. So it's very easy for anybody to walk through here, so there is no space. And one of the days we were walking through here, I believe Nick was meeting with a contractor or some other people, and they were just sitting out in the open office space of Village Hall. So I'm sure I disturbed them a little bit as I'm poking around and looking at stuff for part of the assessment. So that's one of the big spaces that's missing for Village Hall. Plus there's things like the 2 bathrooms that are up there are not ADA accessible, they're too small for accessibility. So you have to combine it to 1 in order to make that, but then you only have 1 bathroom and you need 2, so that becomes an issue. As well as we talked about it'd be good to have a space for, the board to be able to have a space that they could use in the Village Hall and some other spaces that we talked about. Within that, then when we get to the police side, that's where we get a lot more things that are missing. So, for one, police doesn't have a sally port. If you don't know what a sally port is, that's an enclosed, secure garage where an officer can pull into when they have a suspect in the back of their squad car. They can pull in there, close the door, and then bring them in securely, so they don't have to worry about a runner, and they don't have to worry about any sort of reprisal from anybody who might be with the person that they have in custody, and it makes it a safer and more secure environment for officers to bring people into booking. Right now, the access to booking is from the street. They have a door that directly onto, the door goes right onto the public sidewalk, right? The door onto the public sidewalk goes directly into the booking room, and it goes right up against where the fingerprinting is done and the computer is done, so that it's a very tight space. It brings somebody up a step and into the booking room. Yeah, up a few steps. So it's not by far the ideal situation for a police officer bringing a suspect into there. There's also the fact that you have 2 holding cells. Current standards would require you to have at least 1 male, 1 female, and 1 juvenile, and all of them to be separated from each other. Currently there are just 2 that are adjacent to each other. So you're missing that. You wouldn't have to do that unless we renovate, but that is something that we typically see. There's also not enough space, so if you did have an event that had really more than 2 people that needed to be held in a cell, it would be very difficult to have any space for those people. I think right now they just sort of cut them in the booking area and hope for the best. So I have to refer to him to make sure I'm remembering properly what we talked about. So those are 2 big glowing missing things. Also that the detectives right now sit in the squad room. Their desks are in the squad room, so they don't have a private space to do their work. The sergeant's office is also the hallway to get from the front of the station to the back of the station. So like I said, it's a problem after hours that they have to go through the boardroom, but it's also a lack of privacy for the sergeants and their spaces. There's also, the squad room itself is lacking and it's antiquated and outdated. The chief has built a locker room for the officers, but there's only one male locker room. There's no bathroom or shower space. There's no shower space at all. The only bathrooms on police is there's one in booking and there's one in the chief's office. There's no other bathrooms back there right now. He's been working on putting one in a space that's not used currently back there, but that space is also then elevated up 3 or 4 steps. So we then get in the accessibility discussion again, and it would still not provide any opportunity for female officers to have a locker room or a bathroom that they can use, or a locker room. And it would segregate then, if you did put a shower up there, it would separate the locker room and the locker room from the shower. So you shower in one space and then the locker room currently is off the garage. I'm drawing a blank on some of the other things that we talked about. So we did talk about the fact that there's currently not adequate training space for police. We talked about the fact that in an ideal world, we'd be able to make the boardroom larger, a bit larger, so that police could do training in here. We could put a folding partition, and it could separate it out. You could use it for community meetings. It could be used for overflow for private meetings. You could have community events in here that it would be able to be used as more of a community space, especially if it wasn't a circulation path. If you've ever gone through this door here, and I know there's a lock on it now, but this door swings directly into the corridor that runs through the police station, and if it's locked, then you only have one point of egress from this space, which means you have to limit it to 49 occupants or less. If it's unlocked, then the police station is no longer secure. So it's sort of a catch-22, and which is a bigger problem, having an unsafe egress point out of this space for when you have community meetings, or an unsecured police station. There's also no secure parking for police. Typically, we'd like to see an exterior lot. Well, ideally, you'd have an interior garage, but that's a liberty not a lot of police stations get. But having an exterior lot that's fenced in, so only police can get into it, and they have access in and out of the building from there, so they don't have to worry about nefarious people hiding in their parking lot around their personal cars, around their squad cars. You wouldn't think somebody would be that bold, but people are. Just flipping real quick. I think that's the major things, and there's just the ability to have more space to be able to add more sergeants, to add more staff within the police department. It's already crowded in there. There isn't enough room to put another desk in the sergeant's space. I said the detectives are already sitting in the squad room. They're already using space. There's some dead space in the back of the building where the old pump house was, that there's still, the electrical services there, there's still some water connections in the pump pit. So the room can't be completely decommissioned and used and fully used for other uses, but there is an old chlorine tank and some other old equipment, and they probably could get removed, but there's still things that need to stay. So it's not a space that we can completely repurpose for too much else. Like I said, there's just a lot of things there's a lot of infrastructure improvements that need to be made to the building. So, I know what I forgot. So there's also the other thing that they don't have, which is of critical importance to the police function, is there are no interview rooms and there are no meeting spaces. So they have no space where they can interview prisoners or suspects, and there's no space where they can talk to witnesses in a secure space where they're not just sitting either out in the open in one of the in the squad room or in the detectives or the sergeant's office, or just sitting out in front. And there's no place where you can securely put a suspect to be interviewed without doing it in a cell, or to putting a witness and keep them separate from each other, so you don't have to worry about any intimidation or anything like that. So there are several spaces within the police department itself that are lacking that you would find in any modern police station. So with that, we put together, there's a couple just sort of diagrams of different ways that we can, or different levels of solving the problem. We can kind of talk about it in sense of both dollars and plan. So there's two concepts for renovation. So we looked at it a couple different ways. We looked at saying, okay, what if we renovate what you have and we don't, if there's not money to expand, or at least not money to expand now, if we just renovated the building, what would that be? So we toyed around with two different ideas. One is that we're just renovating the space and we're taking, so the one thing the police station does have more of than what they technically need is garage. So there is more, so we would renovate into the first half of the garage and expand police into there. Doesn't solve all of their problems, but it gives us a little bit more room to work. And then we would need to basically gut and renovate the entire police department portion of the building in order to reorganize and fix some of the ADA issues, reorganize the building and get it to work more better than it does now. Which we would cut in a sally port into one of those bays so that they'd have an interior parking space to be able to offload prisoners. But in order to do that, we would have to move the holding cells and the booking to the rear of the building so they'd be off the sally port. So all that would move to the back, which means then that area in the front can free up to allow us to have better public vestibule space, add some interview rooms, add those to the spaces that we want to have up front, add those up there. So that's one idea. The other renovation idea, which I know is not everybody's favorite, would be if we sort of say flipped police in Village Hall and police moved over to where Village Hall is now and expanded back and Village Hall moved to where police is now. It's one way of just sort of, it solves a couple problems with the way that the access point of this hallway between the boardroom and police, and kind of puts the boardroom a little bit easier. We'd have an easier time putting our Village Hall and the boardroom at one level than we do with Village Hall being there. But it does create, the front entrance then for police becomes much more pronounced than the front entrance to Village Hall, which as a community, a front-facing community member, you want your Village Hall to be the larger presence if you have to choose. In an ideal world, the way we build police in Village Hall, and it's pretty common nowadays, it's a common thing to build combined Village Hall and police stations, but now most of them are built with one entrance, one large lobby space where police windows on one side, Village Hall is on the other side, and then I like to think the idea of having like the boardroom community space kind of in the middle, so that you come into that vestibule space and you go to the window that you need, or you go to community space straight ahead. But that would be much more difficult to do within the existing building, because we would have to basically redo the entire front entrance of the building, which would add a lot of cost to it. So then the other idea is if we added an addition, which just sort of diagrammed out, so on the site plan and the floor plan, you can just kind of see, we didn't lay out all the spaces, it's just sort of blue and yellow for who takes up what space. So Village Hall, in order to get the square footages within the existing site, using the existing building that we have and the space needs, Village Hall would take over that first half of the police garage. The garage I didn't color in because that's existing space, it would just stay as it is as a police garage. But then police office space in the front, then we would add on and sort of fill in the L shape of the building, where that pole barn is right now. We would take that out and we'd fill in that space in order to get police offices, sally ports, all the things that are in the space needs for police in order to expand police to be the right size that it should be based on what we've discussed in the space needs. So when we talk about the last page, sort of the different budget options, so we said scenario one is just doing the 5-year plan, doing the 5-year repairs, right? Not renovating the buildings, not adding on to the buildings, none of that. You know, we're with contingencies and overhead and profit, we're at about $2 million, just a little over $2 million. Scenario two is just making all the repairs. So it's all of these, when we're talking about repairs, it's taking the numbers from the space needs, adding them all up, and then adding contingency and overhead and profit, because there's still a lot of unknowns until we get into the design of everything. All the repairs that were about $6.5 million. Then we talk about repairs and renovation. So again, the first two are just fixing what's broke. It's not dealing with anything within the space needs or reorganizing the buildings. So scenario three starts getting into repairs and renovations, which runs about $7.5 million. And then scenario 4 is repairs, renovations, and additions, so that's that diagram that I just mentioned about adding on to the building. That gets us at 14.7 million, with then the idea of a new building being about 14.2 million. So because there's costs with selective demolition, there's costs with renovating, there's costs with fixing things that are here that if we built new, we wouldn't have to do. The new building does come out to be a little bit cheaper than our initial estimates than renovating and adding on would be. Now, obviously, depending on the site, those things could vary. If it stays here and we tear down this building, there's costs associated with where does Village Hall go, where does police go while the building is being built. And to build a police station, a Village Hall, you're looking at about an 18-month construction project. So you're not talking about a short amount of time that they would have to be relocated somewhere. And building this site isn't enormous enough or large enough to be able to say we'll build the building on another part of the site and then demo this for parking, because there isn't a large parking space that we could work with. So it would be difficult to build a new building on this site. If we did renovate and add on to this building, that obviously we could stay here without. There would still be some pain, because we'd have to, when we renovate the spaces, we would definitely have to still, we could phase it so Village Hall has to move out and go somewhere while you renovate the Village Hall side. Then when we're doing police, we could phase it through the police station, so they may temporarily have to work out of the back half of the station or something. We haven't really got into the logistics about how that construction would work, but it would definitely be something we'd have to work around. I've just thrown a whole lot of crap at you. So I will now let, you're all probably tired of listening to me talk, so I will let you all shoot me your questions or thoughts.
Answered everything I had questions on. You answered everything I had questions on, so thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a lot to digest, but it's something that, needs to be discussed. I think we'll give the opportunity to the new board to, kind of figure out a direction. I mean, it's just something that's been a long time coming. This building has been kind of cobbled together over the years. I mean, this was originally 2 different buildings, and this was a alleyway, and just over time we've kind of patched things together and made it work. But the 21st century and what police departments require, I mean, it's obviously it's not ideal, let's put it that way. So it's gonna have to, the board's gonna have to make some hard decisions in the future and try to come up with a funding source and, figure out what needs to be done, so. Any specific questions for Ron?
No, you did a good job. It's a lot of information, but it'll be very helpful in the guideline.
And if you have any more, anybody has any questions on the details as you go through the spacing and facility assessment, feel free to reach out to Nick, and Nick will pass your questions on to me, and I'll get you answers.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
All right, on to item E. Approve hiring applicant for full-time public works labor position.
So as I think I reported at the previous meeting, we actually are up to 7 applications received. We interviewed 3 candidates, all were good candidates, but one clearly stood out. And so this gentleman is the one recommended, was the most qualified, seemed like a great fit. This is covered by our collective bargaining agreement, so it starts, the current starting rate is $18.75 an hour. So that's,
The candidate's name.
the candidate's name is Donald Marevka.
Okay. And so Shelley's gonna recuse herself from this. Any discussion on that? Need a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Moved by trustee Sturba, second by trustee Sandberg.
Trustee Hudson,
Yes.
trustee Sandberg,
Yes.
trustee Sturba,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor March.
All right. Moving on, approve new business registration, Holiday Inn Express, 413 South 88th Avenue. As Nick reported, they're busy trying to finish things up and hopefully will open next month. So this is their business registration, so I need a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, seconded by trustee Sturba.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
All right, next, agenda, approve a proclamation for Municipal Clerks Week, which is May 4th to the 10th. Proclamation says, whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meeting of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations, where it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now therefore, I, Peter March, village president of Peatone, do recognize the week of May 4th through 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerk, Stacy Hartwell, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Need a motion to...
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved by trustee Hudson, second by trustee Sturba.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
All right, moving on to item H, approve a proclamation for National Police Week, which is May 11th through the 17th. To recognize National Police Week 2025 and to honor the service and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Peatone Police Department. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, there are currently more than 24,000 law enforcement officers in the United States that have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 37th Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 13th, 2025. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of National Police Week, which will be observed this year, May 11th through the 17th. And whereas May 15th is designated as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Peatone will observe May 11th through 17th, 2025 as National Police Week in the Village of Peatone, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and in communities across the nation. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, second by trustee Sturba.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
All right, next item, approve live scan fingerprint system upgrade proposal for police department, amount of $6,235.50.
So this was a piece of equipment that was becoming outdated and not really functional for the village's needs. The initial quote we got from this company was approximately $10,000 or more. The chief and I worked together with leading IT and were able to buy the computer separate. And this is the piece from this company, HID, $6,235.50. So ultimately, I think we saved a few $1,000s doing it this way. And this is something that we need and will serve our needs going forward. So it's kind of a team effort to try to save a few dollars and get what we needed. So, Chief, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else. Thank you for your
And
help.
it's in the budget and everything, so we're good.
Right.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, second by trustee Sturba.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
All right, item J, approved purchase of Ford 350 pickup with snowplow for Public Works Department, in the amount of $58,931. This was in our capital improvement plan and also in the budget, and we're purchasing this from the local Ford dealer, Terry's Ford. Questions? Need a motion to approve?
Motion. Second.
Moved by trustee Sturba, second by trustee Sandberg.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
Item K, resolution approving extension of employee lease agreement with MGT Impact Solutions LLC for finance director / treasurer contract. This would be resolution 25-R-07.
So, yes, so this, something that we extended back in September of 2024. When I started, the contract had expired, and the company had moved from, you may remember, it was GovHR, now it's merged together, and it's called MGT Impact Solutions. And so we established a contract then from September 24th to May 2nd, so this is expiring. But when we did that, we talked about an extension because we're in the midst of our audit right now. And so the contract that we had allowed for an extension through August 1st. Now, that's hopefully the audit will be completed, but that is the target. So this will extend Anne Marie's contract through August 1st. We will need to consider what our plans are at that, leading up to that. If we want to continue on, we can do another contract. If we want to do something different, but we should start talking about that soon, because any recruitment takes time. One thing I wanted to share as we were preparing for this is, I looked back at the historic budget numbers, and for fiscal year '24, the total cost for Anne Marie services for the whole year was $76,289.50, so a little more than $76,000. And that's an all-in cost. We don't pay any benefits, we don't pay any retirement, that's the cost. In FY '25, despite an increased hourly rate with MGT Impact, the total cost was only $64,700, so about, $12,000, $11,000 less in FY '25, which I would attribute to managing the hours better, maybe some of the financial things that when you first start, you have to work through, but having things better under control. And also this board's action to make Diane Nielsen full-time has allowed her to take on some of the work that would have been billed at an hourly rate, and we've been continuing to try to do that. So I'm not guaranteeing that same decline next year, or in this current fiscal year, but I think we will continue to manage that. And again, that's our all-in cost, no health benefits, no nothing, so that's, I think, a win. But I think it's most important, just so that as we transition with the new mayor, that we have somebody in place and can finish the audit, and then we can decide very soon what our plan is going forward, so. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Need a motion to approve resolution 25-R-07.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, second by trustee Sandberg.
Trustee Hudson?
Yes.
Trustee Maravka?
Yes.
Trustee Sandberg?
Yes.
Trustee Sturba?
Yes.
Questions of the press? Any other correspondence? Entertain a motion. Oh. Anything else? No. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by trustee Maravka, second by trustee Sturba. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.